Well, thank you all and good morning. It's wonderful to be here in this room with so many passionate, committed conservatives talking about an issue which is nothing short of fundamental to the health and future of our republic, and that is preserving the integrity of our elections. That's something which we at the Honest Elections Project are fighting for every single day across the country, to make sure that it is easy to vote and hard to cheat, and that we and future generations will have elections that we can trust and have confidence in. But that's a fight which is both never-ending and incredibly challenging, because the left is looking for every opportunity to skew the voting system for its own advantage. And as they do so, there is no rule, there is no principle, there is no law or safeguard which is too sacred or important to attack or discredit if it gets them closer to that goal by even an inch, changing the process so that they can give themselves an advantage. And what I want to do with the short time that I've got with you this morning is share my thoughts on three of the latest threats from the left to our election system. And the first of those is the reemergence of Zuck bucks. We all saw how corrosive private election funding can be in 2020, when a single left-wing entity, the Center for Tech and Civic Life, sent $350 million to election offices around the country. But they didn't do it evenly. They sent more money per capita to places that voted for Joe Biden than Donald Trump. And they used the money to drive what looks like a government-run get-out-the-vote program targeting constituencies that are core to the left's politics. It was corrosive, and the more that we learned, the more states stepped up to the plate and banned Zuck bucks. In fact, half the states today have passed a law restricting or eliminating that practice. But the left doesn't stop. They operate with a certain Newtonian logic. For every action, there's a reaction. And as states stepped up and banned CTCL's program, CTCL simply adopted a new one, the U.S. Alliance for Election Excellence, an $80 million program tying CTCL and a number of other left-wing organizations, all with an agenda to change voting for progressive advantage. And they brought them together under the banner of this new program targeting local election offices, offering multi-million-dollar grants in states that haven't banned Zuck bucks, but crucially in states that have, allowing offices to simply buy their way in. They found a loophole around those protective laws so that they can continue to pump their influence in politics into the offices that we entrust with running our elections. What we have done is we have FOIA'd all of the offices that have joined the alliance, and we have learned the truth of what this program is and what it is not. What it is not is an award or a note of excellence, which is what the public is told when an office joins. What it is a quid pro quo system. And you don't have to take my word for it. You can take a look at the notes that were captured by an election administrator who joined this program in Brunswick County, North Carolina. And she puts it in black and white. Offices that join have to give something, and they get something. What they get are best practices, trainings, coachings, guidance, even legal and political advice from a coalition of left-wing organizations, political advice going into the offices that run our elections. And what they give is access, data, and they spread the alliance to other offices. And what the alliance does with the data that they capture is develop what they call improvement plans that literally fundamentally reshape the way these offices function and turn them into models of left-wing activism. This is something which is going on across the country. Unlike in 2020 when they parachuted in at the last minute, now CTCL aims to stay and transform itself into a shadow regulator and use this alliance that it has constructed to change the way that we conduct elections. And that should alarm all of us, especially since this alliance is tied to some of the deepest and darkest money on the left, George Soros, Arabella Advisors, and even a foreign billionaire named Hans-Jörg Wyss, who has spent hundreds of millions of dollars to influence American elections and to push a progressive agenda. But they don't stop with just trying to weaponize the administration of our elections. They have an even more fundamental plan to change the way that we vote altogether with something called ranked choice voting. This is a system that asks voters not to vote for a single person for each race, but to rank multiple candidates. And then through a series of elimination rounds and redistributions of votes, you compute a winner who claims to have won a majority. Except that often doesn't happen, because so many ballots can be thrown out in a ranked choice election because of a problem called ballot exhaustion that oftentimes the person who wins only gets a plurality, not the majority. That's a common problem in a ranked choice election, and it's just the beginning of the many, many problems with ranked choice voting. RCV is a nightmare for voters and public officials alike. It makes voting harder. It makes recounts harder. It leaves our election system at the mercy of an algorithm that we don't always understand. At a time when we need to be promoting transparency in the name of voter confidence, ranked choice voting turns our elections into a black box. But the fight over ranked choice voting is going on all over the country. And the same people who are paying for Zuckbucks 2.0 are paying for lobbyists and local organizations and ballot measures to promote this unwise practice all across the country. Fortunately, conservatives are stepping up with a new coalition called Stop RCV. And with that coalition, we aim to bring to bear the intellectual and other resources needed to stop the spread of ranked choice voting. But remember that Newtonian logic, action and reaction. When states step up to the plate and ban ranked choice voting, as we encourage them to do, and as 3 have done this year, the left returns fire with ballot measures promoting ranked choice voting. And not just that, they also aim to blow up the party primary system too. They don't want parties to hold primaries. They want everyone to run in a single California-style jungle election, and then the top vote getters go on to a ranked choice general. A 1-2 punch that the left's elites have calculated will not only make it harder for conservatives to get elected, but will also weaken political parties. And guess who steps into the vacuum? George Soros, Hans-Jörg Wyss, Arabella Advisors Network, the people with the money and the resources to influence politics. They are spending tens of millions of dollars to push ranked choice voting across the country, and they aren't buying a more representative or responsive government for the people. They're buying one that will be more responsive to their politics and their agendas and will give these left-wing billionaires even more influence over our political process than they have today. I encourage you all to check out Stop RCV at the QR code there to find out more about what the conservative organizations around the country are doing to push back on ranked choice voting. And now I'll speak about the third threat that I think we all need to be aware of. Even if the left fails with Zuckbucks, and even if they fail with ranked choice voting, they have an ace up their sleeves. They have an army of litigators who are willing to go to court and abuse the judicial system to push their politics and to rewrite your voting laws. Even worse, we have seen many, many instances where the Democratic Party itself will sue a Democratic state official who will then enter into a collusive settlement to rewrite your voting laws behind closed doors. In 2020, the army that you see here filed more than 200 lawsuits. Many of those were masterminded by Hillary Clinton's former lawyer, a man named Mark Elias, who has a law firm with at least 70 full-time attorneys devoted to this issue alone, fighting to change voting laws in courts across the country. They have enormous resources. They are plugged into the same organizations that are funding Zuckbucks and ranked choice voting. And they will not stop until they have used the courts to their fullest, until they have used those collusive settlements and consent decrees. And as we move into another election cycle, I don't see any reason why 2024 will be any different than 2020. There is not a law or rule which is too sacred or too important to attack or discredit. And I fully expect that we will see this army of left-wing lawyers going into courts across the country to get rid of vote trafficking bans and voter identification laws, to push for late mail ballots. The objective is never to level up on security, it's always to level down, to introduce just a little bit more muddiness into the system, and if possible, create a greater margin of litigation that could allow these same lawyers to sue in courts to change the outcome of elections afterwards. I'll leave you with this final thought, though. The left has enormous resources. They have a tenacious desire to change the voting process for their own aims. But conservatives are winning this fight. 2 years ago, when we did a poll, we asked, who supports photo identification requirements? And we got a response which was mind-blowing, 77%. Today, we're nearing 90% support for photo ID. Conservatives have the common sense answers to preserve the integrity and security of our election system. And the left will try, and they will shout, and they will make noise. But the American people are with conservatives. We have to keep our eye on the ball. We have so many issues that are facing our nation: protecting life and religious liberty, bolstering our national security against the threat of communist China, stopping the spread of ESG, preserving parental rights and education. But the first issue that we have to get right is elections. We have to make sure that we and our children have free and fair elections, and that's what Honest Elections Project is here for. Thank you all for the time.